Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back again in another podcast. In our podcast of this evening or this morning, we are going to address audience. So, as a speaker of English, you come across this situation a lot where you find it's a little bit challenging actually to introduce yourself to other people, especially in the formalities and the context of speaking and delivering a speech. Because speech delivery is one of the elements that people find a little bit challenging. It's the epitome of language learning and language speaking, or let's say communication in general. So I've been thinking about a podcast where we analyze a speech that is authentic, reliable, deliverable, easy, and fraught with vocabulary that can build the foundation of your learning and would be the basis for your development and your excellency in language. Because sometimes, if we do not practice and we do not speak, we do not communicate, we do not bring ourselves to the challenge mode, we lose the knack of the fluency in English. And I see a lot of my friends struggle with that, especially bilingual people, because lack of social stimulus to speak English. So in this podcast, we're analyzing an essay. Maybe it's not an essay. It's a speech that was delivered by a representative of a foreign body in a country, and I just snatched it from a website, and I use it because it's really authentic. It required a little bit of modification, so I made the necessities to make it teachable and producible, and also utilizable by the um, colleagues and fellows in the field of academia. As an academician, I really think this kind of realia or authentic materials benefit the audience and benefit learners of English for three single reasons. First, the authenticity of the texts extracted and presented. Second, the relevance of this text to real life. And third is the active vocabulary that are common in the field of education and in the field of politics or in any specialization. Taking 5, 10, 15 minutes of your precious time, sitting your butt down and listening to this, or jotting down the list of vocabulary is going to make the huge difference that will bring the real professional, proficient English speaker in you. I defaulted to extract sample vocabulary and I chose 25 vocabulary because I don't want it to be just a listening for vocabulary podcast, but also I seek diversification of materials presented so you can benefit from the vocabulary here, but not on the expense of pronunciation or the expense of the grammar or the expense of the rhetorics here. And the ultimate purpose, especially for the intermediate and advanced learners, is to look at this kind of text and ask themselves, what's the ultimate benefit that I have here? maybe it is something that has to do with your professionalism, with your field of work. Let's have a look here and see what we're addressing. I started the keywords by looking at the word introductory, which is, in a sense, an adjective. Um, Introductory means tamhidi. It's a word that is commonly associated with the word introduction. So if you hear introduction, you would definitely know what introductory is, and vice versa. Workshop is warsha. So we usually use this kind of word in the context of training for specific purposes, whether that's politics, medicine, biology, chemistry, science, geography, history. These workshops are held as boot camps, ended probably sometimes with a capstone project where the attendees present the ultimate understanding of what they've garnered during this workshop. Iraq's national strategy, استراتيجية العراق الوطنية, hate speech. I'm going quickly over the list of vocabulary, and I can assure you that this list can be screenshot and also saved in your phone, or you can jot down the list of vocabulary, and then, since I'm not a dictionary, of course, you can look them up. The process of searching for the vocabulary will be the guarantor for the long-term memory to save these vocabulary and make them or render them producible and reproducible, recycled, and spoken as much as possible. Diplomatic, I think it's a clear word. International community. I'm focusing here in particular on the pronunciation, the enunciation of each one of the letters in once they are fused in this, ecosystem of words. International community, UN colleagues. Now, this is an interesting sound. Colleagues. A lot actually mispronounce these words. And the only shortcut is no shortcut to mastering pronunciation. Colleagues, you have to say it so many times. I remember the story of a Finnish sniper who got retired in the Second World War, I think when the Red Army of Russia invaded Finland, and he made a record of more than 500 accurate shots against the Red Army without using binoculars. Once he was interviewed, they were surprised actually that he achieved this huge number of death tolls among the high-ranking Russian Red Army. And they asked him, how could you make this huge number of strikes against the army without using binoculars? So he mentioned two interesting things. Binoculars are not good for snipers because they reveal their position. Once sun is reflected or any kind of ray is reflected on the front lens. So he avoided using that, and he used to fill his mouth with snow. So the other sniper or counter sniper wouldn't see the buff of air coming out frozen of his mouth. And second, which is the relevant part here, he said, the only way I could be better is because I practiced. Bringing that kind of scenario into this reading, a lot of people actually struggle with reading accurately and pronouncing words accurately because they do not practice enough, they do not listen enough. I know it's a boring thing that we bombard you all the time with, but honestly, there is no shortcut in language. You have to go through the struggle and failure and failure and failure to the point where you say, wow, I am the better version of myself. When we learn a second language, we're just installing another operating system. And this operating system needs constant updates. And the only way you get these updates is by constantly accessing input sources from reading and from listening. Media, academic, distinguished guests. I think the word distinguished means مميز, but here in this kind of context, maybe means ضيوفنا المحترمون, distinguished guests. Peace, and it's pronounced peace, 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 and stability, stability. A lot of people actually wonder about the difference between stability and stabilization. Stabilization is the act of doing an effort to reach stability. So stabilization is an action. Stability is the idea. Countries such as Iraq employ so much effort in the stabilization of the country to reach the level of stability that is desired. Recovery, التعافي أو الانتعاش. Terrorism, conflict. There are actually two pronunciations for this word. Conflict, which means يتعارض, and it's a verb, and conflict. If we look it up in dictionary, you can see here that there are two variations. Here as a noun, and it's conflict. And here also, if we dig a little bit deeper, you will find that this word can also be used as a verb. But I'm not going here to go through the etymology of this word and the derivation as much as showing you the two variation of pronunciation here. Resilience means صمود or مرونة, but these are opposite words, opposite nouns. What we're seeking for here is the endurance or القدرة على التحمل, but also the flexibility against the pressure or the external pressure. Unity, unity, unity. That's the word, unity. الوحدة. Shared vision. هي الرؤية المشتركة. Remember, this is a list, not comprehensive list. It's a gist of some of the vocabulary I snatched out of the text, extracted and put it in here so you can have an access to form the basis of the foundation before you transition to the reading of the speech that I'll attach in the video. Shared vision هي الرؤية المشتركة. Democracy, democracy. Look at the pronunciation. It's democracy, democracy, democracy. Violence, 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 violence. Division, الانقسام. Division أو الفرقة. Division, division, division. Programming. This is a very interesting word. Actually, in the context of politics and international studies, they use the word programming for all sort of programs that are employed by the state to stabilize the society or to offer services and this sort of things. Strategy. A plan of action is usually meant as خطة عمل, and it's not خطة فعل. It's خطة عمل. So plan of action. And diversity means تنوع. Going to the speech, the first part that I want to talk about here is this interesting introduction that was presented by one of the key speakers in a conference that was held in Baghdad. And I took it, made some changes um, out of my liberty to present it as a subject of matter in education and learning and interpretation. Introductory workshop on Iraq's national strategy to prevent hate speech. ورشة تعريفية أو تمهيدية on Iraq's national strategy. Remember, the word Iraq here is a noun, but it's describing the word strategy. So Iraq is a noun by form, it's a proper noun by form, but it's an adjective by function. Again, Iraq here is a noun by form, but it's an adjective by function because it functions as a description to the word strategy and as well national, which is another adjective. So we can have a noun plus adjective or an adjective plus noun to describe another noun. And that is for sake of clarification of what that is within this kind of context. Hate speech هو خطاب الكراهية. It's very common among the international community that this word has been studied thoroughly by so many experts in the field of academia and in politics and in international law to understand the bottom of it, to understand why there is hate speech and what are the repercussions are of hate speech. Usually for a keynote speaker, they start by greeting the audience. And the way this expert started was very plain and simple and straightforward by saying, members of the diplomatic and international community, أعضاء المجتمع الدبلوماسي والدولي, fellow UN colleagues, زملائنا في الامم المتحدة, fellow media والإعلام, academic and distinguished guests والأكاديميين, وضيوفنا المحترمون. Good morning to all. Remember, he didn't say good morning all because this is less formal and more, I would say, vulgar. But this is me. This is I who think of that. It might not be up to the level of being vulgar, but the way he should have said it, and he did, was good morning to all. All protocols observed. I can't think of an equivalent translation in Arabic except for مع حفظ الألقاب في هذا النص, in this particular text, as a representative of UN in Iraq. Remember, when we speak, when we pronounce words or a cluster of words in a sentence, don't pause on the preposition unless there is a necessity for that kind of pause, because we usually pause on something that has a linguistic value, such as a noun or verb that carries more potential meaningfulness than the other counterparts within the structure and the syntax of the sentence presented. Semantically speaking, the less value the word is, the less stress it has and it receives. For example, here, as a representative, as a representative, as a representative. Remember, as a representative, I'm just marginalizing, I'm so biased against saying as a representative. I can give it like 10% of my pronunciation flow because I don't want to dwell on it. Dwelling on articles, determiners, prepositions, adverbials, and so on and so forth will just derail the linguistic weight of the word. And this is not what we desire. We desire to give the meaningfulness through, or the juiciness of the words through focusing on the words that carry most of the value within this kind of context, nouns and verbs, because they carry most of the meaning. Of UN. So remember, UN is United Nations in Iraq. In Iraq. You notice here something interesting that we do. We just bridge it. So we don't say in Iraq or Iraq. We say in Iraq. I stand before you. Remember, the preposition here is before, and it means literally in front of you, before you. You here is meant the audience whom he's delivering the speech to. It is not meant as one person, but is the whole community that is listening to this person. Inspired by the resilience and unwavering spirit of the Iraqi people. Very interesting sentence that had and received an inversion. The original sentence is, I stand before you inspired by the resilience and unwavering spirit of the Iraqi people as a representative of UN in Iraq. Quite possibly, once that is inverted, it loses the grammatical juiciness of it, or succulence, the linguistic succulence of it. And one reason for that is sometimes we front part of the sentence for sake of importance and priority and deprioritize or demote other kinds and other parts of the semantic structure or the syntactic structure of the sentence for sake of the promotion of the latter over the former. And this is very common among linguisticians to play around this kind of structure to beautify and add a touch of spices to the text and succulence to it. Today means currently or presently, at the moment, at this time. So it's an adverb. We unite to further. Quite interestingly, I love this. I mean, the way they use the word further as a verb is quite interesting here. Iraq's journey. This word is journey. Journey. It's not pronounced otherwise. It's journey. 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 Look, journey. Toward. Sometimes you hear towards, sometimes you hear towards. Both are actually interchangeably used. Peace and stability. رحلة العراق نحو السلام والاستقرار. With or with, both are acceptable. There are two variations of pronunciation for this word. If you look here, we have with and with. So I would say tomato, tomato. But what happened is once it's fused, because we're creating this kind of connectors and bridges within the text to bring it to a harmonious level of production, we say with this. So I'm just fusing with and the into one single unity, saying with this important workshop. I don't stress important as much as I stress workshop, because the word important is an adjective, so it receives less significance and stress than the word workshop, which carries far more important meaning. And the national strategy to prevent hate speech التي تكون ورشة التي هي ورشة مهمة في هذه الورشة المهمة on the national بشأن the national strategy the national strategy to prevent hate speech. استراتيجية الوطنية للوقاية من خطاب الكراهية. Iraq's recent history. When we talk about the word recent, this word denotes to the history of Iraq within the last decades. And when we talk about history, we don't have to say تاريخ. ممكن سجل is another word, marked by recovery. Marked by recovery. Recovery هو التعافي أو التشافي. From where? From where? From where? From where? Terrorism. Terrorism. And conflict. And conflict. And conflict. So the D here is a bit, we say, silenced. Demonstrates يوضح ويبين the enduring courage. الشجاعة التي لا تلين. الشجاعة الدائمة والمستمرة. Enduring or enduring. Enduring or enduring. Courage. Courage. شجاعة. Resilience. 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 Now, we talk about the word resilience, we mean الصمود of its people. Of its people. Now, the word its here refers back to Iraq, and this is a possessive adjective. It's a possessive adjective, and it's a possessive adjective here. The United Nations, supported by the United Nations, supporting the government of Iraq. The original sentence, supporting the government of Iraq by the United Nations, has been an integral part. There is a present perfect here to refer back to a starting point in the term of support. And then there's an integral part, which means جوهري أو جزء أساسي. So it's integral. Integral or integral. Integral or integral part. Integral or integral part. Partner. Partner هو الشريك. So partner. It's an integral part of that recovery. Our collective efforts. جهودنا الجمعية. Our collective efforts are founded on the belief. Are founded مؤسسة أو مبنية. Are founded on the belief على الإيمان that resilience بأن الصمود happens through unity. يأتي أو يتأتى هذا الصمود through unity من الوحدة. And a shared vision. Remember when we talked about the shared vision is what we have just addressed in the beginning when we came across the list of vocabulary for peaceful future. Going on. Hate speech, a global scourge. Scourge هو آفة global عالمية أو عالمي آفة عالمية فهي آفة أو بلية آفة erodes تنخر أو تأكل أو تتآكل erodes the foundations of social cohesion erodes the foundation of social cohesion اللي هو التماسك الاجتماعي and democracy. Look, and democracy. It breeds فهي تغذي breeds تغذي أو تزرع أو تولد violence and division، العنف والانقسام. The UN's programming in Iraq has long stressed the need to prevent hate speech consistently. بصورة مستدامة consistently. In line، طبعا هذا حرف الجر in line with، بالتوازي، the United Nations strategy and plan of action on hate speech. We're committed. Now, when we talk about talk about the United Nations. We're committed to addressing لمجابهة أو مواجهة this issue by fostering dialogue من خلال رعاية الحوار, education, fostering is a very common word, and understanding, thereby وبذلك transforming the narrative. Narrative هو السردية. narrative of division to peace وتحويلها من سردية انقسام إلى سلام, especially in areas recovering from conflict, وبالأخص في المناطق التي تتشافى أو تتعافى من الصراع. Iraq's mix of culture، خليط العراق من الثقافات، faiths والأديان، ethnicities الأعراق ethnicities exemplifies يوضح أو يكون مثالا جليا exemplifies a strength born of diversity قوة نابعة أو مولودة من التنوع. National strategy to prevent hate speech supported by the UN's alignment with the National Counter Prevention and Violent Extremism Strategy affirms تؤكد the necessity هو الضرورة, necessity. I'm highlighting these words because they are very important for you. Cherishing الاعتزاز, cherish something هو أن تعتز بشيء, cherishing this diversity, ensuring inclusivity الشمولية, and celebrating والاحتفال, but celebrating differences as a source of national pride, والاحتفال بهذه الاختلافات كنموذج للفخر الوطني. The UN strategy guides us to prioritize لإعطاء الأولوية for education, raise awareness رفع الوعي about risks مخاطر, risks of extremism تطرف, and spread نشر culture of human rights ثقافة حقوق الإنسان, tolerance تسامح, and acceptance of others وتقبل الآخرين. We work to activate, طبعا كلمة activate is common in Arabic and in English for applications and for other sort of activities. To activate education, media and cultural outreach هو الوصول أو التوعية. To raise awareness of the concepts مفاهيم citizenship مواطنة, tolerance تسامح, and to prevent violent extremism. As we move forward, let us remember the lessons. دعونا نستذكر أو نستحضر دروس الماضي and harness is a very common word, هو أن نحتضن أو نتمسك ب the strong Iraqi spirit, الروح العراقية القوية, to overcome لتجاوز present challenges تحديات الحالية أو الحاضرة. In unity فمن خلال الوحدة we will craft a future. سنصيغ craft future resonant resonant, 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 resonant with peace ملؤه السلام, where hate speech is removed, حيث يزال خطاب الكراهية, حيث لا مكان لخطاب الكراهية, and every individual's voice, ولكل فرد صوته أو رأيه, because the word voice here is representing metaphorically the speech of people, contributes مساهمة to a harmonious coexistence. Coexistence هو التعايش, or living together. Synergy. Harmonious هو المتناغم أو المنسجم. This is the last word that I wanted to share here in this podcast that may be useful for you to learn English from. Please write these vocabulary, and if you like this kind of episode, let's stick to this kind of cadence and move forward with this sort of podcast. Thank you very much. مدرب لغة وليد خالد.